Good evening and thank you for being with us. A report from Canada's military is alleging mistreatment, neglect and abuse in some Ontario long-term care homes. The military was brought in to help in 5 of the hardest hit homes in Ontario during the COVID-19 pandemic. Premier Doug Ford says details in the report are horrific, and he says the issues will be addressed. Colin DeMello reports.
When the Canadian military was called into 5 Ontario long-term care homes, the conditions they found inside were nothing short of appalling. Cockroach infestations, severe patient neglect, and even a death potentially due to improper feeding.
It's so disturbing when I read this. It was hard to get through. It was the worst report, most heart-wrenching report I have ever read in my entire life.
Here are some of the key findings. At Orchard Villa in Pickering, they found cockroaches, flies, and rotten food. Patients were left in soiled diapers for days, and improper feeding appears to have led to one person's death. That will now be the subject of an investigation by Ontario's coroner.
The results of these investigations will be shared with police to look into any possible criminal charges.
The report goes on from there. At Hawthorne Place in North York, ant and cockroach infestations were found. Residents were in soiled diapers and weren't bathed for several weeks. Residents were force-fed, leading to audible choking. Some residents were observed crying for help. At Altamont Care in Scarborough, residents were not having 3 meals per day. Their wounds were not properly addressed, and some were bedbound for several weeks. At Eatonville Care in Etobicoke, new staff were not properly trained. A culture of fear led to them not using supplies, and key supplies, such as wipes, were kept under lock and key. And at Holland Christian Homes in Brampton, staff were moving between infected and uninfected patient rooms without changing their PPE. Food was left in residents' mouths while they were sleeping, and staff would rather report that the resident refused to eat rather than actually help them to eat.
The dignity of these patients in long-term care not being cleaned. These are just standard operating procedures.
While the Premier says the situation in long-term care was 20 years in the making, critics are now laying the blame at this government's feet.
Doug Ford and Mary Lee Fullerton ought to have known about awful conditions in long-term care.
Premier Doug Ford is not shunning responsibility.
The buck stops with me, and I take ownership.
We asked whether anyone would be held responsible.
How do you hold your own government accountable? Will anyone resign over this?
Well, again, Colin, we've done a tremendous amount of work since we've taken office. And the system, again, is broken. And I'll spare no expense to make sure we fix the system.
The Premier says he is now open to the idea of a full-scale public inquiry.
And we'll have a reaction from this story to this story from Ottawa coming up later in the news hour. A group has been formed that's looking to save properties owned by the Finlandia Association. The Finlandia Cooperative of Thunder Bay is made up of 7 individuals, mainly former members of the association. They're in the process of collecting funds right now with the goal of having enough financing to purchase the Hoito and the Finnish Labour Temple. Corey Nordstrom has details.
Their vision is to have a multicultural space, a more diverse space, without forgetting the Finnish roots. So that means that more different types of people will be using the space. We hope that the Bay and Algoma neighborhood will embrace it.
Paula Happonen is among 7 directors of the new Finlandia Cooperative. Their goal is to change the way the Finnish Labour Temple is run to one more transparent and driven by the community with a whole new business model. But first, they need to raise a lot of capital to even have a chance at securing a portion of the properties owned by the soon-to-be liquidated Finlandia Association, which are valued at near $1 million. Lindsay Williams started a GoFundMe to drum up some cash initially. It's raised more than $2,500 per day and is now nearly halfway to their $25,000 goal.
I had a higher amount. I had 100,000 initially, but I thought, you know what, 25,000 is a good start. It's a quarter of what I initially had. So I thought, you know what, if we can reach this, that's great still.
Any serious attempt at refinancing would probably need for us to at least have $200,000. But that's just me. I haven't sat down yet and spoken with representatives of credit unions locally to see what exactly would be necessary. But we know it's going to be more than $25,000 for sure.
It's going to take quite a bit of support financially from the community, which I know is always a little hesitant, and especially during this time. But I hope that people can see the merit of investing now, and then we can really work together to make this cooperative what the community wants it to be.
The cooperative is in the midst of opening an account with Bay Credit Union where they can receive funds through e-transfer, check, and cash. They're still early on in the entire process and need to decide what to do with the group, which could also help generate funds.
If we've decided if we're going to sell shares, or if we're going to sell memberships, or if we're going to be a for-profit or a not-for-profit cooperative, at that point we can also raise some capital through membership sales.
Hoppenin says whatever they do come up with will be made public, and they'll ask the community what they think of it. A lawyer had told the Finlandia Association that there may be a buyer of their properties as early as August, so the cooperative and community need to act fast in order to have a chance at saving the Hoito, Tapiola Sports Field, and the rest of the assets. More information is available on the Finlandia Cooperative of Thunder Bay Facebook page. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Thunder Bay City Council has decided it wants to be presented with more options when it comes to upgrading or replacing the aging Balmoral Police Station. A previous consultant's report recommended a brand new facility. The councillors couldn't stomach the whopping $52 million price tag. Council's now asking for a report that includes the possibility of small neighborhood satellite offices. Ryan Bonazzo has details.
Councillor Trevor Gertuga doesn't think a new $52 million police station is a responsible use of taxpayer dollars.
It would be nice to have a brand new building, but sometimes it's not about what we want, it's about what we can afford.
In response to a report from Form Studio Architects presented to Council in early March, which recommended the new facility, Gertuga brought a motion forward on Monday evening asking for more options, including the possibility of small satellite offices to relieve pressure on the current Balmoral station, which is bursting at the seams with more than 300 Thunder Bay Police Service employees. The police force is against satellite offices, as explained by Deputy Chief Ryan Hughes.
It spreads our resources out, and there's more supervision that's required for the satellites. We've had neighborhood offices in the past. It doesn't increase safety or crime in areas.
That being said, he notes the consultants are already working on another report for Council.
They are going to look at the satellite option and have a full report for September.
While that information would seem to make Gertuga's request for a report redundant, Council still approved the motion unanimously.
I think it's important that we send a message to the Police Services Board that a $50 to $60 million expenditure right now, we need to do our due diligence and we need options.
Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
No decisions have been made yet, but city councillors appear keen to relax restrictions on seasonal patios, allowing more local restaurants and bars to serve customers outdoors this summer. Only a handful of businesses participated in the city's pop-up patio pilot project over the last 2 summers, as some owners expressed frustration about municipal red tape. The city had intended to extend the pilot and deliver a report to council at the end of the season, but Mayor Bill Morrow's motion asking to speed up the process received unanimous support last night. Administration will now share the findings from the last 2 years on June 15th, allowing council to make changes in time for businesses to benefit this summer as they try to recover some of the money they've lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Obviously, businesses being so negatively impacted, I think perhaps there's a possibility that we might see more take up now, because I'm not sure that customers under the old scenario, when they're allowed to go back, will go back, and that an outdoor patio might give people a little higher level of comfort.
Small businesses, I don't even understand why we need a formal patio. When you go to the countries, etc., just get tables, put them out on the street and on the sidewalk, not even on the street, on the sidewalk, table, a couple of chairs, and boom, you're on your way to business. No expense whatsoever to the business.
Can we broaden the definition of patio or at least contemplate a business that doesn't serve food or drink, is it possible for them to set up a kiosk outside, either daily or temporarily, or maybe on the weekend, and create that kind of market atmosphere?
The pedestrian overpass at Marina Park will be closed to the public for much of the summer after City Council awarded a $1.3 million repair contract to Tom Jones Corporation last night, the same company that originally built the span in 1994. The coating system protecting steel on the 26-year-old overpass has begun to fail and shows the steel now shows advanced levels of deterioration. Railings and approaches to either end of the structure will also be repaired. The contract came in about $500,000 under the initial estimate that was set aside in the 2020 budget. In the past, some councillors have spoken about taking down the structure entirely, due in part to safety concerns. And while council unanimously approved the repair work, those concerns linger.
Are there any safeguards that are planned once this thing is rehabilitated? Any type of security, any type of maintenance on the inside that's going to prevent people from urinating in there and doing drugs in there?
Last year, we did implement additional cleaning in that structure, and we did find that we received less complaints from the public. There has been discussions around gating the structure, as well as providing additional security, and additional security has been provided for 2 years now, and it has provided some relief.
The bridge will be completely removed with a crane in mid-July. Repairs are expected to take 12 weeks. Problems with pinhole leaks continue to pop up in people's copper pipes. Despite the phase-out of sodium hydroxide in Thunder Bay's water supply earlier this year, our Troy Charles spoke with one Northwood homeowner who is dealing with the problem. He has more in this report.
Local plumbing companies say they continue to receive daily calls to fix pinhole leaks. Some residents have had to have sections of copper pipes replaced as many as 7 times. Limbrick Street resident Jack Roussel has had his hands full in recent weeks dealing with a bevy of leaks in his basement.
I came down after work. I came down in the basement, and I seen the whole basement was flooded. Like there was a lot of water on the floor, and the water was actually gushing out of the pipe. And I shoved the water right away, got my repair kit, and I fixed the pipe. And about a week later, same thing happened. I came back from work. I came down in the basement. It was all wet again. It started leaking from different spots.
A third leak would eventually sprout, and that was enough for Roussel, who ended up replacing the entire 24-foot section of his main line with new copper pipes. Michelle Warwoda is the Director of Environment for the city, and she says they continue to receive, follow up, and investigate all reported pinhole leaks, but she does admit that COVID-19 has put a damper on those dealings. She also maintains the city will not compensate residents for any repairs or damages due to pinhole leaks.
The city doesn't compensate for these type of things. If a member of the public felt like they had a claim against the city, then there is a claims process that they could go through and follow that process.
Roussel is also concerned about a brown-colored coating he noticed on the inside of the pipe when he cut it open. Roussel speculates that the residue could possibly be eroding the pipe while it's sitting there. Warwoda encourages anyone with similar findings to notify the city.
What I would say is just if they come across those kind of things, that please call us and report it, just like any type of water quality concern that they may have, so we can do the proper follow-up with them.
That's exactly what they did. As Roussel informed us, the city has reached out to him to take a piece of the pipe he cut out to test the brown residue. Troy Charles, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay District Health Unit, working in conjunction with the Fort William First Nation and Superior North EMS, have announced another drive-through COVID testing session. It'll be held this Saturday from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon at the Fort William First Nation Community Hall on Anemke Drive. Band members can be tested while remaining in their vehicles. However, appointments must be booked in advance through the District Health Unit. All those showing any symptoms are being encouraged to be tested. Well, the Thunder Bay Country Market is getting ready to open its doors to the public once again, and many new steps and precautions are being put in place for customers and merchants alike. Starting this Saturday, people will once again be allowed to enter the Dove Building on the CLE grounds. It's the first time the public will be allowed inside the Country Market since April 1st, when they closed their doors and transitioned to online orders only. Market officials say they'll be following provincial regulations and limiting vendors to approximately 20, and will now only be offering produce, baked goods, and groceries. Vendor booths will also be further apart, with only 2 shoppers permitted at a booth at a time. In addition to all of the added safety measures, they're also implementing a new, creative approach.
Our new strategy is shop, don't stop. So on Saturday, you will be seeing that we will have some volunteers wearing their fancy safety vests. They're called our market marshals. And we will be helping the flow move along so that we can get people in and get people out.
It'll be nice to be able to get to meet or see again the people that used to come on a weekly basis and be able to at least say hi to them as they're walking, as they're going by with the shop and don't stop.
The Country Market will be open from 8 until 1 every Saturday. Wednesdays will continue to be reserved for online order pickups only. And Westgate High School was back open today, not for learning, but for students and their parents to come and pick up any belongings which were left behind in classrooms or lockers when the pandemic hit. Students were split into groups by their surnames and given time slots for retrieving any leftover items. They all had to enter through the main doors with markers on the ground to keep proper distance when lined up. Students were then screened by school staff and offered hand sanitizer and plastic bags for their belongings. They had 10 minutes inside to clean out their lockers, and no more than 50 students were allowed inside at a single time. Ali De Silva had to drop off a textbook and pick up some gym clothes. She felt that the process was very well handled.
It was good. Like, they had someone ask the questions, and they had hand sanitizer like everywhere around the school, so it was good.
And it didn't feel like it was too crowded in there?
No, there was only like a few other people in the building, so it was good.
Well, I thought we were probably gonna like maybe pick them up like closer to like when school's supposed to start in September, and I honestly didn't know what I had in my locker, so I kind of just went there to make sure I cleaned everything out.
Westgate will also be open tomorrow and Thursday to get through all of the students and their allotted time slots. Other Lakehead public schools around the city are also open on certain days this week for item pickups, and the schools get ready to shut down for the summer. A similar plan is expected to be announced by the Catholic School Board next week.
A bit of a different day, Fiona. A little